Welcome to Branding the Beltway. I'm Stacey Piper, a 25-year government marketing expert and the host of the podcast that helps you level up your B2G marketing game with actionable insider tips and real-world case studies. If you're in the business of doing business with the government, you're in the right place. Each episode delivers straight-to-the-point strategies from senior marketing leaders familiar with navigating the unique world of GovCon. In each episode, we'll first explore that month's topic on a macro level, talking strategy with CXOs. Then we'll deep dive into the same topic on a micro level, examining the practical approach of development and implementation. We're talking brand awareness, content strategy, and the campaign tactics that actually move the needle. Whether you're a CXO, a growth strategist, or a marketing practitioner looking to strengthen your federal position, Branding the Beltway is your essential resource for driving results and winning more contracts. Let's connect strategy to execution and position your brand to win. Hi, and thanks for joining. I'm Stacey Piper, your host for Branding the Beltway. Today, we're speaking about product marketing in the public sector. I'm so excited to have our guest, LaRel Rogers, joining us today. LaRel is the Staff Product Marketing Manager for Okta's federal business. Okta is a reliable mission partner and powerful vendor-neutral platform that puts identity at the heart of the tech stack for government and commercial organizations. LaRel, welcome. Will you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Thank you, Stacey. Yes, as you mentioned, I am product marketing for Okta's federal business. I have done some form or fashion of marketing throughout my career that supports the federal government. I started early in my career. I started at a government media agency, which essentially ran events and content syndication and stuff for large, medium SaaS providers. And I just kind of found my way in different organizations, just supporting the federal government as a mission partner. So it's been an exciting career. I spent probably the last 6 or 7 in product marketing, and so I'm excited to chat more about that today.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure everyone that listens will benefit from your years of experience. So as you guys know, we start with talking at the macro level on the topic to CXOs in government contracting firms. And so I wanted to start at that level and just set the stage and tell us how, in your own words, how you define product marketing.
I think I know I'll go into more words, but the one word comes to mind is storytelling or a storyteller. You have to influence both internal and external. You have to get people excited about a product, a use case, a solution. You're influencing decision making, decision making from a roadmap standpoint, decision making from a buying decision. Federal IT dollars does not come it's not an endless money tree of federal IT dollars. So you're influencing the decision of deciding for that agency, that department, or that enterprise-wide contract to make a purchasing decision for the product or solution that you sell. So there's a lot of storytelling and generating brand awareness, both from the top of funnel down to the technical side, and translating complex. It sounds so corny to say that because you might see that in any job description of product marketing, of the ability to translate technical and complex topics into, a way that resonates. But that is the core of what product marketing is.
I love that storytelling concept. And I know you've had commercial experience as well, and that Okta also sells products commercially. When you think about product marketing in the federal sector, does it differ greatly from the commercial sector?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference, and it's not, the commercial sector and my commercial counterparts are some of the best marketers that I know. But I think the biggest difference is it's not we're not a vertical play. This is not just a thing you do. It's not a vertical solution or alignment for the business. It is truly down to the fact that to sell to the government, there are stringent security and compliance requirements that you have to meet. It makes or break the deals, whether or not you've achieved those federal compliance requirements. So that's the biggest difference. I'd say the other difference is the just having to be super mindful of the lane and the scope that you're in, but also translating that back to the corporate and then vice versa. We again, something you might see in a job description of product marketing if you're not familiar with it is the ability to take the corporate messaging and translate that into your business segment. But it works the reverse as well. Like what are the big corporate initiatives that you have going on that you have to take time and consideration to translate that back to provide further justification and growth opportunity. So I'd say the translation part and the security and compliance part are the biggest differences.
That's really interesting, and it makes complete sense. Um, to dig deeper into the differences in the security compliances, I know milestones like FedRAMP or DOT, IL levels can make or break a go-to-market success. From a leadership perspective, how should organizations think about these, not just as checkboxes, but even as growth enablers?
Great question. I mean, the biggest thing is the launch milestones. One of the most common launch milestones you might see in the market is early access and generally available, right? Early access is we have this product, we want you to test it, we want you to love it, we want you to give us feedback, and then we'll make those improvements and move to generally available for every single person that has access to our system. Whereas on the other side, for federal, oftentimes more than that, it's not 100% the case, but oftentimes they're not, we take the generally available product and then we make that into the federal product, if you will. We run that through the security control points and checkpoints, like you mentioned. It's not just that. So that's one of the biggest things of how organizations should go about these compliance requirements is how do you close that window between generally available and then when it reaches your federal audience, because they want it, right? They want, when they see your roadmap and they see these exciting features, they want at the same time that commercial gets it. um, and so to do that, it requires a lot, but one of the biggest things you can do is just spread awareness internally, especially. I mentioned storytelling, influencing at the top of the call because that is so important. It helps not only your federal business or your public sector business, but it also helps the commercial business that also sells to the federal government as well. There are a lot of multi-sector sellers that exist in organizations. It doesn't have to always be a vertical by vertical situation. There could be a seller that sells to healthcare, to federal, to retail because they sit in a certain region within the country. So just being mindful of closing the gap from a compliance and product roadmap standpoint, but also closing the gap of what does this launch mean to win the federal business, not just for the federal vertical within your company, but anyone that touches federal at all.
That's really interesting. And I'm going off script here a little bit, but now I'm really curious because is generally, this kind of the initial product or minimum viable product versus the widely available, generally available, is that the same as what I'm hearing now about like commercially?
Commercially available.
Yeah, is that the same?
Um, n- Not really. So the commercially available is, I love you said that because that's stuff that we're incorporating in our messaging. That's the idea of not of build versus buy. That's essentially that idea. It's saying you all, like, as the government, you already don't have all of these resources from the people standpoint, from a cost standpoint, from a process standpoint. So why take the energy to build something in-house that you can buy off the shelf, like COTS, commercially off the shelf? um, so that's what that commercially available that you're seeing and mandates or in, federal news articles is saying is that to be efficient, right? Think of Doge and think of efficiency or automation. To be truly efficient, lean on what's commercially available, what SaaS providers are literally, that's what they do. Like Okta, for example, we do identity. Like, so why waste the time internally to build out identity?
That's great. I'm glad that you had an answer. I didn't want to stump you, but I'm hearing that in another conversation I'm having with contracts managers and GovCon attorneys. And so I was
Hmm.
like, Wow, it sounds like it might be related.
Yeah, that's a good point though.
um, okay, so you know, again, looking at the leadership level of an organization, how can they really orchestrate the organization so it can be successful with product marketing? Like it seems like product marketing sits at the crossroads of multiple different functions within the organization. What tips do you have there?
I mean, you're spot on. It is such an interesting role. You're kind of, if you think of like a quad or a pod, and I'll get into that in a second, but it's like you said, this intersection between product and sales, like you're essentially tied to a product manager for the most part. um as a product marketing manager, you're tied to a product manager, and then the two of you or the group of you work together to create this roadmap to satisfy sales targets, not even satisfy sales targets, because that's one thing, but satisfy the needs of your customers, right? The needs of the government and the nation's security. Then on the other side of it is you're in this pod, and I'm actually in a pod internally at Okta of like campaigns, demand gen, digital. Like you're at this weird intersection of you could be pulled in two directions. And so you want to be mindful of how you set up your product marketing team for success. Like I said, I'm fortunate to be in a pod and to have that cross-functional collaboration. But I'm also tied to understanding what's happening in the sales landscape. From a like educational standpoint, I just encourage anyone that has a product marketing team or wants to build out a product marketing team to make sure they have all of the tools and resources at their disposal. I'm not trying to pitch a particular tool or brand, but I have access to a tool that allows me to see different contracts that are happening, to see different news. I don't have access, unfortunately, to Bloomberg, but I love Bloomberg. Anytime I'm in the car, I'm listening to Bloomberg. I listen to the like YouTube just like channel that's just like on 24 hours just in the background as I'm working. So you need to have a pulse. Like that's part of product marketing, and specifically to public sector product marketing, is having a pulse on the industry, translating that back into what your company does and putting that out to the world. So if you can set up your team to have that pulse through tools, resources, training, that's the best way to succeed.
Yeah, I can see how like a continuous loop of, feedback from customers and that kind of awareness of what's happening in the sector can really make a difference. Before we move on to the last question for CXOs, I'm just wondering, I know that the organization you're in now is larger and has more resources. You have, these pods and quads, et cetera. What would you say for companies that are smaller and, maybe are just trying to dip their toe into product marketing? Like who in the organization should even be informing that? And how would they do it, like on a pilot level or a micro kind of experiment with product marketing?
Yeah, I think the best framework to, and I've worked at startups in like a generalist role where I wasn't a product marketer, but I was a product marketer maybe Monday, and then Tuesday I was an events manager. So I totally understand the pain and the hustle of how that exists. But I think the best framework and advice I can give is to kind of like build build quarterly boundaries of what the focus is on. Um, I'm fortunate to work at a company, and this is not unique to Okta. You'll see this across the board, but I think Okta does such an amazing job of having quarterly launch weeks, which is pretty much a internal and external way to guarantee to know about what products are happening. So I think setting that quarterly boundary and setting up your small team for success is one framework I would recommend, because it allows you to build out other, like your full year calendar of just not random acts. Like you don't want to just randomly act on something. You want to be proactive. You want to see, okay, when is like the skinny budget come out for the year, and what can we do around that time, and what can we do around the cybersecurity awareness month. So you build out these moments in time, and then you set your team up for success, and then you're allowed to be a little bit more lean, a little bit more, putting out fire drills and stuff like that. So yeah, I think having a calendar view of what you absolutely need to do for the year would be the best advice.
I love that. And the ability to remain agile, especially, at a time like this when things are changing is critical. So with these QBRs, like these quarterly business reviews, um, what metrics and KPIs should CXOs be looking to evaluate to see if their marketing investment in product marketing is paying off?
Yeah, I mean that's such a loaded question because again, it depends on how you're set up. But I think the easiest metric is quoted pipeline versus product ARR or bookings. That's the easiest way to determine are the products you're putting out actually generating revenue? Is it actually, from a financial side, but is it actually resonating? Is it actually benefiting the customers that you serve? So the closer you get to that number and the closer you track that is the best metric that it's a catch-all metric, if you will. But then you can get down to the actual tactical level. So a blog post, for example, for us, a blog post is like one of the first touch points to understand what we launched or what our product offers. So how do you track that over time? But set up benchmarks. Don't just like say, oh, we achieved 200 views or something. What is that benchmarked against? For example, for me, I benchmarked it against our previous year audit ready blog to see how this current year is performing, doing different A/B tests. So how do we test the blog title? How is one performing over the other? Do you want to be more compliance led? Do you want to be more customer led? Do you want to be more business value led or a combination? Um, you could also track, and again, this is depending on how what your marketing dashboard or what your marketing metrics are available to you, but just any like mention of the product you're selling. Like if there's a mention and an opportunity, if you maybe look at it from a quote line level of the specific product, and then how is marketing supporting that? Like what was the last touch that marketing had before that opportunity was created or closed is the best way to kind of see the value of this role or just marketing in general around a launch.
That's really interesting because I mean, touch points, that's pretty advanced stuff. Like that's like almost attribution level, I feel like.
Hmm.
Do you guys have tools that allow you to see what clients or contacts are interacting with which pieces of content in the journey?
We do. And again, it's like that's the great work of working at a full stack company and working with people who are such experts in their own domain and scope. We use Tableau internally, and we have a dashboard that lets look at the funnel, like what's happening throughout the funnel, which channel is driving the most at different stages of the funnel, looking at just opportunity compared to marketing program and then the marketing attached amount. But that's what's happening at the organization I'm at. Doesn't mean that that was always happening. So I'd say it's also some of the data doesn't kind of like translate. I feel like translate is a common word. I'll say this on this today, but it doesn't always translate one to one of your unique segment. So you still have to do your own analysis. But yeah, I think from an attribute standpoint, whatever you're putting out there, blogs, even we do like radio ads, like that's still a thing in public sector. Um, Radio ads, social, we've done direct mailers, like whatever you're doing, you need to collect that metric. You need to see quarter over quarter, year over year, how it's performing. And product marketing has a role in most, if not all, of those programs.
That's exciting. I love the metrics. And I love, the pod and having the, even qualitative feedback from things like, um, the salespeople and the folks who are client facing staff who can give some, feedback that you wouldn't see on dashboards.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll like chime in because that's such an important one, like that anecdote and that stuff that you can't put a number to. Another like tip, if you will, and this definitely applies to no matter the org size that you have, is events is such an important channel, right? Like, you know, that it's such an important channel for any public sector organization. There's the FCs of the world, there's, the small account based shows. Use that channel to your advantage. Use that channel to influence your product decision. Internally, we use that channel to during the postmortem to chat with that field team that attended, and we capture, was it worth it? Like, who did you speak to? How was our presence at the show? But then it's also, what product conversations did you have? What product interests, what product gaps did you uncover? How can we, shift our messaging to reflect these conversations? How can we influence up to the product and engineering teams to decide? Well, it seems like across all these shows for X amount of quarters, everyone's saying the same thing. Can we move the needle on this? So just take advantage of the channels that you have and the budget that you have to make a data-driven decision.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And I know we'll have a whole separate podcast on events and event marketing, but they are such a huge cost for organizations. And all the SMEs who attend are so busy, and they come
Yeah.
back and they go right back to work. And those debriefs and collecting whatever you can out of them is just critical. Excellent. We're going to take a short break. And when we get back, we're going to examine this same topic from the micro level on tips on how to implement. Thanks for joining us. This episode of Branding the Beltway is brought to you by Piper Strategies and Orange Slices. Piper Strategies, marketing that moves the needle. Piper Strategies is a full-service creative agency for leaders serious about growth. We decode the complex, translating mission-driven work into clear, compelling narratives. Our clients expand their reach, communicate with impact, and earn trust in competitive markets so they can win more work. We don't just deliver results, we build your internal marketing muscle. With Piper Strategies, clients grow with us until they outgrow us. It's a partnership-first, unagency approach that not only gets you noticed and builds credibility, but also scales your brand and your team. Learn more at piperstrategies.com. Orange Slices, fresh intelligence for B2G success. Cut through the noise with Orange Slices, a trusted source for public sector insights, teaming opportunities, and procurement intel. With a playful name and a powerful platform, they're serious about making data accessible and usable so the entire GovCon community can thrive. For resources, visit orangeslices.ai. Welcome back to the second half of this episode of Branding the Beltway. I'm with LaRel Rogers, and we are talking about product marketing in federal. LaRel, that first half was so great and shared so much information. And I'm hoping, since you are like hands up, sleeves on with this day in and day out, that you can share some frameworks that work for, GovCons with big teams, without big teams. How can they guide their product marketing efforts successfully?
Yeah, I think in terms of framework, I mentioned the whole set a calendar, set something that's reoccurring so you're not distracted by fire drills. But I think another one is just working cross-functioning. And I keep saying things that sound so basic, but they're so true. It's just working cross-functionally. I mentioned at the beginning that product marketing sits at this interesting intersection. So how do you actually lean into that? An example that I can provide is I took I won't go too much in the weeds, but customer experience and federal is such a important thing. It's such an important initiative that's happened over each administration and year over year. And I took the time to enable and educate my team on that, and looked at the landscape, look at what was overlapping and things that we can take action on. And in order to create that framework, in order to create like a playbook, if you will, is that I made sure that not only I had the influence of what that go-to-market strategy looked like, but everyone else, from sales, from customer success, from marketing, like every type of marketing, and obviously other supporting functions. Is we use rapid decision making, and every company might have a different form of decision making, but we use rapid decision making, and then we everyone set up an initiative and goal. So like if the example I'm talking about for the customer experience initiative is sellers wanted to understand, was the CX persona actually someone that they can engage with? And they set that as an initiative, and they set a goal to set up, at least one meeting a month to talk to those type of personas to see if they were a decision maker in the particular solution that we provided. So in summary, create a tiger team as much as you can. Create, in addition to like that yearly calendar, create tiger teams, work cross-functionally, and set individual and group initiatives and goals.
So you mentioned earlier in the conversation, for instance, that like when you're looking at metrics, like the blog is one of the first touch points. Do you have other examples of kind of what you're mapping the content to the journey and what that looks like from in a product marketing campaign from beginning to late stage funnel?
And this looks different, but I think if we're talking about frameworks here, is blog, no matter what, like a blog is going to be the easiest thing to put out and to share the launch milestone and the compliance milestone. Some companies also do a blog and a press release. They say fairly the same thing. Like the major thing is we achieve this, right? And whether from a high level compliance, like of achieving FedRAMP High, or now a new product has been added to our authorization package. So just, I would say, be mindful and figure out how to make them different. Other stages and other assets to include in the funnel are data sheets. Data sheets, I feel like, is similar to events. They're never going to go away for public sector. They love themselves some data sheets. But then also get with the times and make sure that data sheet is straight to the point, right? It's not a white paper. At most, it's 2 sides or double-sided print. And it should communicate both as a messaging and product hub of what your offering is. Then you start to get into the middle and bottom of the funnel where you could start to be a little bit more technical in your nature and white papers. But I just thought about something that I totally forgot. Make sure your sales toolkit, your content toolkit is relevant to what you're selling. And it's okay to change it over time, right? Like I mentioned, data sheet and blog is kind of like the tried and tested and true part of that toolkit, but also start to get creative. Everyone is talking about AI, right? Right now, in the space that I'm in around identity is around non-human identities. We decided to take an approach for our sales toolkit is to compare AI. But I bring it all back. I mentioned Labubu because we decided to compare non-human identities to Labubu. They have this idea of it became so popular because they have what they call blind boxes, where even celebrities are like opening this up on like TikTok and Instagram of you get like a mystery box and you don't know what Labubu's inside. And it's this kind of the same concept of non-human identities. Like they're in the background. They're in the background. You don't know what they're doing if you don't have the right governance strategy. So we decided to, yes, we made a blog. Yes, it's top of funnel. It's thought leadership, but we decided to do it in a fun and approachable way. And we use AI. We literally asked Gemini, explain Labubu to me if I was an IT and security leader. And then that helped us write the blog and shape the story. Um, so I say all that to say is, regardless of your toolkit and regardless of what you need to fill in the gaps from middle or from top, middle, bottom of the funnel, make sure it's trendy, it's timely, but still evergreen, right? Like you don't want to always create a new blog every single day. Make sure it's still evergreen, but make sure it's approachable. Like I think if you think of all the especially SaaS companies that exist, that it's starting to come overcrowded and oversaturated the market, right? And you want to stand out, you want to capture the federal IT dollars, you want to do it in a way that's approachable, especially for new topics like AI. Not everyone is an AI expert, so you want to make sure you're providing an approachable way.
The idea of keeping it fun is making me smile, and we're recording on a Friday, so I love smiling on Fridays. So when marketers, in-house marketers, want to try a new product marketing initiative, whether it's a messaging revamp or a new campaign, what have you found is the best way to pilot, measure, and pivot in the government market?
The best thing to do is cross-functional. We're cross-functionally, right? That's going to be, influencing translating and cross-functional is like top three takeaways today. We're cross-functional because like you don't, as a product marketer, you don't really own any channel. Like I don't own the website, I don't own the event strategy, so I need to work cross-functionally and influence, right? I need to take, hey, this is what's happening in the industry, or this is what is going on from the contracting landscape, and new decision makers that are popping up. I mentioned AI and the the newness of AI. AI is like it's been around, but it's the new cloud, right? Um, there's now chief AI officers. There's part of some of I forgot, it's Friday as you mentioned, so I can't remember the exact number of the executive order or the exact number of the OMB, but there's a mandate to have a chief AI officer in every federal agency. And then look at the American AI Action Plan. It's definitely probably in there as well. um, that's a new persona that you may have not sold to a year ago. So how can you pilot things in the digital channel? Like how can you use LinkedIn? How can you look at the channels that exist to you and your company, work cross functionally, take advantage of that and test and pilot? So we could, example that we do at Okta is we run LinkedIn ads all the time. We choose different types of imagery and messaging to run on those ads and see which one performs better. And then we decide to switch during the second half of the quarter or the year of, okay, this one performed better. Let's pivot and actually lean into that and then take lessons learned, rinse, repeat quarter over quarter. So that's just work cross functionally, lean into the channels that you have, figure out where you can A/B test, where there's new things to test around personas or industry topics and stuff, and then go from there.
Yeah, it makes sense to lean into digital too, because you can change it and pull it and pause it and all those things as you iterate on things. Great reminders. So you mentioned cross-functionally again. And so let's talk about alignment on the day-to-day practical level. Like, I know that you've got messaging and content and campaigns that are happening at the corporate level, maybe in other sector marketing, and then you've got all the sales and capture initiatives. What can you do to align and make sure that all the information is flowing back and forth seamlessly?
And again, this is a personal preference. What works best for me is I take an hour and a half to 2 hours every Monday morning to do what you just said, to look at those different opportunities and outlets. From BD priorities to market research to analyst reports. I mentioned I listen to Bloomberg radio in the background, and then I'm like, oh, what was that? And I'll pause, stop what I'm doing, write that down. Like that was a good nugget to have. So yeah, I'd say, and again, doesn't matter what size company you are. This is just best practice of what works for me. Dedicate time at the top of your week to pull all that stuff together, because there's so much that comes out. Like I said, that the market's saturated, but it's also a lot of like information that comes out from all these different sources. I don't know if I was just not paying attention to the White House press release, briefing room, whatever you call that landing page. I don't know if I was not paying attention to it like 2 years ago, but I've like the amount of stuff that comes out from administration on a daily basis, like you really have to take time every week to catch up. And then the way to like translate that back into internally is my counterpart who covers state, local, and education. The two of us work together to create what we call like a monthly market pulse. So we take, again, I said we spend time and we collect and we take all this information that's happening externally, and then we put it in like a nice, just like one slider of, hey, here's the top news that we heard, and this is what we plan to do with this news. What about you, right? Like we send this internally and we let people decide what they want to do with this information. Another great tip is to use AI. I am not an AI expert. I'm trying to use AI. I love to use that to just map, like do mapping. Like what does this particular product that I'm launching, how's that map to CMMC or some type of DoD ICANN requirement, or CX initiatives? Like how does that map? And the ability of using that is because it's taking the sources that you provide and it's providing the exact output you're looking for. So in summary, it's just you have to spend the time. You have to spend the time to digest it. use AI to digest it way quicker than you normally could, and then make sure you're providing that intern, right? Like, don't keep that to yourself. There's ways that other teams can take advantage of the knowledge that you're capturing, and vice versa. Like, see what other internal sources that people are putting out that you can learn from and put into your go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, sharing those resources internally so everyone isn't doing all the same work is definitely key. And I will definitely be looking up that notebook AI tool that you mentioned. Um, I know we talked about metrics a little bit in the first half. And obviously, folks here know that, in the federal government sector, we've got likely the longest sales cycle. So when you think about showing value and reporting to stakeholders internally, are there like leading indicators that you like to use, things that they might not be the final metric that leadership really cares about, but they might be some things you can measure along the way to know if you're on the right track or if you need to pull back on something or push harder?
Yeah, the quoted pipe versus bookings is always going to be the leading factor, leading metric. Because obviously you're setting a goal, right? You're setting a goal for yourself, and then you think about the long sales cycle, and then you compare it to the actual federal fiscal cycle. So say we launch a product in August, and then the federal fiscal cycle ends, end of September. There's not much time to capture that end of fiscal year budget. So what can we, like, how do you move the needle and drive faster and take that as the benchmark of what you're able to achieve for the rest of the cycle or the year that you're benchmarking yourself against? So that's kind of, I would say, again, top of mind, the best framework to do. And the other one would just be the initial engagement. And it goes back to, if you have dedicated time of when you're sharing your launches, then it's much easier to track and to make progression on. Because we have something that happens every quarter, we can just track quarter over quarter. How's it performing? What enhancements do we need to make? Where's the placement, right? We have a release overview page that we have, and we're moving the placements of certain material and information up closer to the top to see if it's going to drive more downloads, more engagements, more interaction. So the the more you have something that happens reoccurring, the better chance you are to really have a metric driven output that you can easily report on. And then that way it gives you room to test and learn and pivot.
That makes sense. I love the idea of like a cyclical marketing strategy and even like very clear time-based marketing programs in market. I can see how that would make things more clear. So before we say goodbye, I wanted to ask, I think we've probably lost all the CXOs by now, so it's just us marketers in the room. I was asking, for you to share your own experience on how to influence up and across to, as the in-house marketer, how do you secure executive buy-in for a new product marketing initiative? Like, what are some of the keys to winning support?
You have to operate as like as a mini CMO. For whether you own a product, whether you own a vertical product like I do. Like, I don't actually own a product, I just own how products are launched to the federal government. And I just act like I'm a CMO for my business unit. That's the best way. And I mean, I again, personal advice, but I just operate like I'm a hawk. Like, I just want to see everything that's happening. I want to be able to influence what that particular thing means for the federal business. I mentioned again, it's reoccurring quarterly launch weeks. Just acting as a CMO, I said, hey, I might not have a splashy thing that happens every single quarter, but we need to at least include something about federal updates, whether it's the tiniest feature, a fix that we had, or a bug that we fixed. We need a reoccurring spot. So that's an example of influencing across other teams, like our product launch operations team, to have a seat at what they're doing to support the business that I support. So yeah, act as a CMO, figure out every channel, every opportunity that you can have buy-in and have visibility for what you do. And then work cross-functionally. It's as I said, it's one of the top takeaways today is you can't do it alone. The more you make your things visible, which is why I mentioned like the monthly market pulse, the more you make your work and your goals visible, the more likely that you are to succeed because you're succeeding collectively. Everyone has a stake, and I'm talking specifically about the federal business, but everyone has a stake in winning the federal business and supporting our customers and making their lives easier. So the more you share, hey, this is what my stake is, and this is what I'm interested in doing, there's someone else that has the same goal probably. So yeah, work cross-functionally, be a CMO, be a hawk, be in everything, put your hands in everything, and then you'll start to realize, well, I was in this and it didn't make sense. It wasn't worth the time. So let me kind of pivot and figure out what's another avenue or channel that makes the most sense for what I'm trying to achieve.
I love that. And, it really sounds like you need to be a good listener and a good communicator, to be able to connect all those dots across the organization and even from across the sector and bring them back to the hive.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was so good to connect with you again.
Thank you, Stacey.
Welcome to Branding the Beltway. I'm Stacey Piper, a 25-year government marketing expert and the host of the podcast that helps you level up your B2G marketing game with actionable insider tips and real-world case studies. If you're in the business of doing business with the government, you're in the right place. Each episode delivers straight-to-the-point strategies from senior marketing leaders familiar with navigating the unique world of GovCon. In each episode, we'll first explore that month's topic on a macro level, talking strategy with CXOs. Then we'll deep dive into the same topic on a micro level, examining the practical approach of development and implementation. We're talking brand awareness, content strategy, and the campaign tactics that actually move the needle. Whether you're a CXO, a growth strategist, or a marketing practitioner looking to strengthen your federal position, Branding the Beltway is your essential resource for driving results and winning more contracts. Let's connect strategy to execution and position your brand to win. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Branding the Beltway. If you're looking for an outsourced marketing partner or fractional marketing leadership who truly gets the GovCon sector, Piper Strategies is the team to know. We're not just here to deliver, we're here to empower. For resources or to inquire, visit piperstrategies.com.